While I am checking homework quickly, tell me what questions you have off the homework. Yo, where's Tony?
I don't know. Number 8. Sick again, probably.
Sick again?
I believe.
So you have a question about number 8?
No, I think
I thought someone said number 8.
What's it?
I got number 6 is 1/4. I'll show you that as part of the homework.
So
you did not do number 18,
I
right?
got it right.
Okay.
This was number 5, number 8. Oh, I ain't do number 5 though. I ain't do number 5. I did number 8.
Bruh, I got 2.
I'm gonna have a 5 on 5.
I got 2.
I have no clue what you just said.
I said I'm gonna have a 5 on 5.
You didn't even do one of the problems.
Yeah, right.
That's a 5 on 4.
5 out of 4? That'd be more than 100%, bud.
So,
Hey, I got -2.
4 to 5.
Not quite. You didn't shade. You didn't show justification as much as you need to. Where's your solutions, buddy?
Wait, where?
Where's your shading?
Why you get -2?
What is he -2?
What else? Oh, that's -3.
Yeah.
I
You
still
didn't have
got
it. You don't have the whole thing, right?
-2 is for
Number 3.
Hopefully you're good to go on all the stuff we talked about today. If not, make sure you watch the video, okay? Make sure you take some notes, bud. That is
Cause when I got that,
not correct.
I also read it.
You keep forgetting to put your variable into Desmos if that's what you're getting it. That's what you're getting. You're not putting the X into Desmos. Because you're putting it in Desmos, aren't you? You might have to do it on your own too, but you didn't do it, did you?
I did do it.
Then what were you just doing?
Oh, I had erased it. I was writing down the right answer.
Okay.
Everything else. I swear to God.
Alright.
Right hand on the Bible.
Tony wasn't here yesterday, was he?
No, sir.
Okay, I forgot to mark him yesterday. Okay, so do we need to talk about 5 and 8 at all, or can we jump to 18? Jump to 18? Everybody get to jump to 18?
Yeah.
Go on, what question do you have?
Number 5.
What about number 5?
Oh, it's on 0.
Remember, x is 0, so 9 times 0 is 0. What's 0 minus 7y?
7-1.
Negative 7y. Remember, it's a negative right here. So then you divide by -7, and y is -3. Yes, sir, CJ.
Hey, can we go over 18?
18? That was the one I planned on going over.
This is my favorite type of math that we.
These inequalities?
Yeah, this is my favorite type.
Why is that?
Cause I'm decent at it.
Everyone likes things that they're good at, but also,
I
would
like
say
the other one.
this is harder than equations and inequalities. You just finally started getting used to how to think mathematically and how to talk about these things, and the more you do that, the better off you're going to be. So CJ was asking about number 18. So first things first, if we're going to graph an inequality like they ask us to, what do we need to examine first?
The y-intercept and the slope.
Why are you looking at the y-intercept and the slope?
So that's what we're gonna need to make the line.
So we're trying to get the what first?
Line.
Okay, so big picture. CJ, what are you trying to copy down, dude? Remember, you asked about number 18. I need you to pay attention as we're going over 18. So when I look at an inequality, we need to recognize that we want to look at the boundary line first. Y equals 4x minus 3. That's my boundary line. Notice it's an equation, not an inequality. The inequality is what tells me to shade and whether it's dashed or solid, but that's a boundary line. What form of line is that boundary line in?
Slope intercept.
We need to recognize that's y equals mx plus b. You've got to recognize slope-intercept whenever it comes up. Because what do I mean by b?
Y-intercept.
The y-intercept. B is a y-intercept. My y-intercept, where I cross the y-axis, is -3. You good with that so far, CJ? Okay? So then what is this for right here?
The slope.
The slope, right? But how do we calculate slope? Not what is this slope, but how do we calculate slope? Zay?
Oh, rise over run. Divided.
There we go. Rise divided by run. Well, when I look at this 4 here, that's not being divided by anything, is it?
No. It's been multiplied by x.
It's understood to be a 1.
We need to remember that's understood to be divided by 1. Remember, Dwan, the multiplication here is because it's repeated what?
Addition.
Remember, an additive rate of change is what defines a linear function, right? But when I look at just that slope, because m is being multiplied by x, but when I look at that slope is just rise divided by run, it's understood to be divided by 1. So CJ, once I get that y-intercept, I know to rise 1, 2, 3, 4,
You know
right?
what?
Because it's positive, and run to the right 1 because it's also positive. Rise 1, 2, 3, 4, run to the right 1. You got to know how to get the points for a boundary line to start. Now, why in the world is this one dashed?
Because it can't be equal to.
It cannot be equal to. It cannot be equal to. Okay? And so, I'm going to dash this. Now, I want to point this out. So notice how I'm defining my slope and my y-intercept. I'm justifying how I'm getting my points, right? If I'm looking at this inequality, I am explaining the inequality is strict. Or you could just say it's just greater than, right? That's the idea of a strict. So the boundary line is dashed. I'm okay with you using abbreviations. We're not writing a paper here, we're trying to do math. And I would say if I was writing a proof or something, I wouldn't use abbreviations, but the inequality is strict, so the boundary line is dashed. Justify these things. Now, why in the world am I shading above this boundary line?
Because inequality
What about the inequality?
greater than.
That inequality is greater than. Now, we'll say that should make me think to shade up,
Yeah.
but have I proven yet that I should shade up? CJ, what is the point of this point 0, 5?
To test it.
To test it. Notice the 0 is taking the place of
5. I mean x.
x, and 5 is taking the place of
Y.
5 is greater than 4 times 0 minus 3. Is 5 greater than negative 3? So am I shading the correct direction? Remember, you can justify looking at that inequality, but the only way to guarantee you have shaded the correct half plane is by testing a point. Any questions about that inequality and those solutions, any of that stuff? So don't forget though, why are we shading all of this?
Because they make the inequality true.
Everything you shade is making the inequality true. Anyone see my remote? No? No?
Scavenger hunt.
Right?
Did you have it last year?
Found it.
Under a piece of paper.
Alright, so quick notes about missing assignments, and we gotta move quickly. Zay, Dwan, Tony, Amity, still missing your review packet. We need to use Desmos, we need to use Khan Academy, Simbo Lab, all that stuff to figure out how to justify those answers, but we need to get it in. It's a 0 in the grade book. I can't help you out if you don't get it turned in. Pre-ACT math literacy. Zay, Tony. I don't know why I keep saying Tony, he ain't here. Zay, I'm still missing your math literacy. I need you to get it done. It's a 0 in the grade book. Release form, Dwan and...
Hey, I got that right now.
Good, turn it in later. So, we need to look at our objectives and get back to 5.6 more or less. Actually, you can go ahead and turn it in now, but I need to get to 5.6 so that we can cover everything we need to before the understanding check today. Alright, so I'm going to quickly read these just for the sake of time. We want to graph systems of inequalities to identify the system set of solutions. We need to write the algebraic representation for a system of inequalities based on the graphical representation. And then we need to determine when a linear inequality includes the constraints on the boundary line, which is when we have a solid line, and when the inequality is strict, a dashed line. I would argue we've done the first and third a good bit. We've spent 2 or 3 days just on this top objective with numbers 1 through 3, right? And hopefully we're getting better with solid versus dashed. Today we need to focus on this before we get to the understanding check. Now as a quick recap though, I do want to ask you, well first off I want to point this out. Looking at this system that is graphed, I used a calculator to do it, right? To check myself, right? You do need to justify everything you put, but looking at a system that is graphed, do you know if it's the first one or the second one? No?
Wait. No?
No? So one of the things I want to encourage you and I highly recommend for you throughout today and the rest of your time in mathematics, be intentional about your organization and labeling. Make your job easier because students have looked at their graphs and their boundary lines and everything all day today and be like, I don't know where it goes. Okay, well take a second. Make sure you label stuff. Number 1. You could take it a step further, right? So this is number 1. It can take it a step further and say, hey, this is A and this is B. So then this is B up here and this is A. Now there is no question which inequality is which. Clarify and define your things a little bit more clearly and it will help you long term. You can even just take a second to write the inequality there. And that makes it even easier to note these things, right? So make sure you're labeling things to make your job easier, not harder. Is that clear? You good with those ideas? Okay? CJ, looking up here, do you know where the solution to this entire system of inequalities might be?
In the blue?
Huh?
In the blue?
In the middle? Is that what you said?
In the blue?
In the blue? So like here? Because that's blue. That's not the blue you're talking about?
The other?
This blue? Not that blue? Why not, Dewan?
You said to the whole thing?
To the whole system.
Oh no.
The green?
It is the dark blue?
Yeah.
Why
The
would...
whole thing?
Yeah.
They're saying yes.
Yes.
Yeah, cause it's shaded. It's shaded on. Is the when both of them shaded?
Okay, and that's what you were saying, right, CJ? That this is our solution to the system?
Oh.
Notice,
I thought you were talking about the other blue.
we're shading up for 2x plus 3y is less than or equal to 20, is greater than 24. Shading down here, so yeah, when I look at this region, this is the only region that's making both inequalities true at the same time. We got to remember that that's what we're looking for when we solve a system. The solutions to the system are the points that are making all of the inequalities true at the same time. We go with that detail. Now, last night, I did ask you to do one more thing, and I forgot to check for it, so I pray that y'all did it.
I tried.
Try, okay? I asked you to do what?
Create a system of inequality, but where?
Not quite. I didn't ask you to go quite that far. All I asked for were the boundary lines. The system's really easy to create after the boundary lines. And that's what I want you to remember. Whether you are graphing or whether you are writing the system, where should you always start? The boundary line. Break it down to focusing on the boundary line first. Now, here are the points. And the reason why I ask that you focus on the boundary line is this. What are the different equations for a line that you can use? Slope intercept, point slope, standard. Which of those three equations should I probably use for all three of these boundary lines? Sorry, I'll turn the air down. Or make it a little bit warmer. Which equation should I use?
Slope intercept.
Why do you say slope intercept, Trey?
Because you got a y intercept, and you got some points that you can find the slope of.
CJ, what do you think about that argument that we have the y-intercept, so we should use slope-intercept? Do we have, Amity, do we have the y-intercept for every single one of these boundary lines? Yeah. And that's what we want to recognize is, if I have a y-intercept, I'm probably going to use slope-intercept. So, does anyone have an equation for a boundary line already done?
I don't think it's right. But
Let's try it.
I got y is greater than or equal to negative 3 divided by 2x plus 10.
Okay, so which inequality / boundary line are you looking at for that?
The one order with negative 2 and 7.
So this left-hand side right here?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so first off, I do want to ask this detail to clarify something. Is that a boundary line? Could that be a boundary line? Why do you say no?
Because that's inequality.
That's an inequality. Remember, a boundary line is always an,
Expression.
not an expression, equation.
Equation.
Remember, a boundary line is an equation. So let's now examine this to see if that is the correct boundary line. So what form is Trey using again here?
Slope-intercept.
Slope-intercept. So CJ, what is the y-intercept of this boundary line? It's 10. So was Trey right on the y-intercept? Cool. RJ, do you agree that the slope is negative 3/2? Do you know how to find the slope? Great question. Where'd you get it, Trey?
Cause it went down 3.
Where are you starting?
Y-intercept.
So up here?
Yes, sir.
So you're going down 3,
And over 2.
over 2,
Yes, sir.
like that? Do you all agree with that?
Yes.
When you say over 2, which direction are you going?
Left.
So positive 2?
It'd be negative.
Oh,
Yeah.
if it's to the left, right? Left side is negatives. So maybe a -3 divided by a -2. What is a negative divided by a negative?
Positive.
Oh. Remember, is this line increasing or decreasing?
Increasing.
So the slope should be
Positive.
positive, okay? So we good with that boundary line?
It's 0 and well, no.
What?
I was saying that you just said if it's positive, the slope should be a positive.
I said the slope should be, or this line is increasing. Remember, we always read from left to right. So as I go to the right, is it going up or down?
Up.
So it's increasing. So the slope should be positive. Does that make sense? What were you gonna say, CJ?
Like, shouldn't you go like to the other side then? Since,
What do you mean?
Like,
To the
like,
right.
like since it's positive.
What do you mean the
You
other
talking about the
side?
graph and like go up 3 and over 2.
Well, so Trey went down 3 and to the left 2, just based on going from that point to this one, but couldn't we also go up 3 and to the right 2?
Yeah.
So it is 3 half. It just depends on which way you go. But notice a negative divided by a negative is a positive. It's the same slope. So that's a good question. So from there, do we think that it's supposed to be greater than or equal to?
Greater than equal to. Less than.
Why less than? Let's say I'm looking right here at my boundary line. Is the shading above or below that point?
Below.
So what should it be?
Greater.
If it's going down, it is less than. Does that make sense, Trey?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I'm going to speed this up so that we can get to what we need to, and you have plenty of time for the understanding check today. But if I look at this red boundary line, what's the y-intercept?
10.
10.
Well,
What number did
0,
you
10. 0, 10.
So the b is 10,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, so the y-intercept, I'm glad you're noting that point, 0, 10. So the b is 10. What would the slope be?
Okay.
Oh, down.
Negative-
How many?
-5.
So
Oh.
down 5,
Over
And
2.
then 2.
stop saying over,
Right.
Right.
to the right 2, because that tells me to make it positive.
Positive.
Alright, so my boundary line is -5 divided by 2, x, don't
Plus
forget
10.
your x, plus 10. So what would the inequality be?
What is inequality again?
It would be greater.
Okay, so I'm here and I'm going up,
No, less than.
so I'm going down, aren't I?
Yes, sir.
So it'd be less than. Less than or equal to?
Oh,
Less
that's
than, equal to.
inequality.
Alright, why is it not just a less than?
Because it's not a dash.
It's not dashed, right? It's not strict. It includes those points. Alrighty. One last boundary line and inequality to go. What is B?
2.
2. M?
-1 divided by 6.
So are you going down here?
1 divided by 6.
You going up?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you're going over to that point. Does it matter which point I do?
No.
That's up 2 and no, wait, that's up 1
That's up 1.
and over 6.
Okay, so my boundary line is 1/6 x plus 2. And what would the inequality be?
I got greater than or equal to.
Amy, do you agree 1 is greater than or equal to here? Why is it greater than or equal to? We're shading up. Notice how this triangular region is the only set of points that satisfies all three inequalities at the same time. You can see that that's the only region that has all three colors, right? I also want you to notice, have I labeled my inequalities doing this?
Yeah.
I haven't used A, B, or C, but I've used different colors to indicate which one is which. If you want to, you can label them. Right? C, B, and A, or even 1, 2, and 3, right? Whatever you want, I just went in the order. Now I need to ask a critical question here. Do I have a system of inequalities?
No,
Why not?
we're not in the bracket.
Remember, I only have 3 individual inequalities right now. To make it a system, I need what?
So you
The
can
curly bracket.
Can you put them? Can you put 3 of them in it?
Curly bracket.
Well, how many inequalities are there in the system?
Curly bracket.
So how many inequalities do I need?
3.
Yeah.
I did that, but I wasn't sure.
So yes, I need those curly brackets. You were right on that, Dewan. And I'm just going to go in order of A, B, and C. Do you think the order really matters a whole ton though?
No, as long as you label them.
As long as you label them.
Could it
And
be-
it's more just about knowing which one is which. You don't have to label them, but that would be the appropriate system.
Say if you got like 5 lines,
Inequalities?
inequalities, could they be in the curly bracket too? If
Well, how many inequalities do you have in the system? You just said 5, right?
5.
So how many inequalities do you need in the system?
5.
Okay.
So it can be how many?
Remember, the only requirement for a system is that it is more than
2.
1.
1.
1. 2 or more than 1. We all good with this information? Okay? So we'll pick up with number 5 next week, but what I do need you to be able to do, and so I've been getting through this a little bit quickly so that you can have this before the understanding check. I need you to finish number 6 here, writing and solving a system of inequalities. But here's what we're going to do. Carlos and Clarita have found a cat food that seems to appeal to even the most finicky of cats, Figaro flakes. They want to mix it with a less expensive food, Tabitha tidbits, to make an affordable but tasty cat food. Why would they want to mix it with something that is less expensive?
Because you cost less money.
It costs less money. They're trying to make money, right?
Yeah.
These are considerations if you're running a business and that you want to think about. Now, here's the context. Tabitha Tidbits contains 4 grams of protein and 6 grams of fat per scoop. Figaro Flakes contains 12 grams of protein and 4 grams of fat per scoop. So, Trey, you tell me this. Do you want more protein or less protein?
More.
You want more, right? That's why Figaro Flakes is more expensive. Do you want more fat or less fat?
Less fat.
Less fat, right? That's again why Figaro Flakes is more expensive. Say again. Yeah. Carlos, but here's the thing, it's more expensive so they won't make as much money.
Sure.
Carlos wants to make a meal for cats that contains at least 8 grams of protein and no more than 6 grams of fat per scoop. So what are the constraints for Carlos and Clarita?
Can be over 8 grams of protein.
So the first constraint is centered around
Grams of
the
protein.
protein. What's the second constraint centered around?
18 grams.
Fat.
I mean fat.
The fat, right? We need to recognize that we have 2 constraints. That's the whole point here. Now, in writing the inequalities for these constraints, I do want you, to think about what form of a line should we use to make this inequality, make this system.
Boundary.
Well, yes, but what form of a line? What are the forms of a line that we've studied?
Slope intercept.
Slope intercept,
Point
point slope,
Standard.
and standard. Which one do you think we should use?
Point
Point. You got so it's constraints, so it should be
There's one form that we usually use when it comes to word problems.
standard.
We usually use standard because I want you to think about this. In terms of protein, every scoop of Tabitha Tidbits has how many grams of protein?
4.
4. So for the first scoop, we get 4 grams. For the second scoop, we get,
8.
well, just individually for the second scoop, another 4, right? For the third scoop, we get another 4. So what are we repeatedly doing there? We're repeatedly adding, which is multiplication.
4
So 4x
plus
plus what?
6y.
Is that protein?
4.
No,
4Y.
4Y, yeah.
Plus 8.
Is that protein?
Plus 8.
No, wait, so are we doing both pro? So-
Remember,
Oh,
you see
12, 12Y.
Remember, Fagaro flakes had 12 grams of protein. And it needs to be at least what?
At least 8 grams.
It needs to be, what would the inequality be?
Equal to.
That's no more than?
I
or at
mean,
least?
greater, less or equal to.
Less, yeah, less than. Or
So if it's less than, that'd be like the number 7. Is 7 at least 8?
greater than or equal to.
Greater,
9, which is greater, is at least, right? So when we say at least, we gotta say greater than or equal to 8. So what about fat?
We got
6,
6Y.
6Y, 6X.
So remember,
Oh, shit.
6x, because x is the scoops of what?
Tab.
And so we need to keep in mind and recognize we gotta define our variables. So scoops of Tabitha tidbits,
And 4Y.
so plus 4y is what?
Greater,
Greater
greater than, wait, no
Less
more.
than.
Oh, less or equal to 6.
Okay? Where y is the scoops of what?
Greater.
Fagaro flakes.
Oh,
What I'm going to ask you to do, we've already written the system, I want you to try graphing that system over the weekend. There's a little bit more to do, but that is the biggest thing. Once you finish copying that down, start on your understanding check. The only things to have on your desk are the resources you need to graph inequalities. And Amity, I'll leave that up there so you can just take a picture afterwards if you want. Okay. So, you have the rest of class to get this understanding check done. I will leave this information up here so that you can get it after class. But our notebook should be off our desk, and we should be ready for class, or ready for the understanding check. I assume y'all know the rubric well enough that I don't need to leave it up here. It's all about your justification.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. I'll go ahead and put up your homework.
Do
Do note that there are 2 corrections to things on the homework task, but just worry about that afterwards because you can quickly take a picture. Right now you need to work on the understanding check. Zay, get that notebook off your desk. Thanks, sir.